position where it cannot escape without suffering more than a few bruises to its GDP and its ego. China's high-speed railway, an engineering feat that was once hailed as revolutionary and borderline miraculous, is now proving that not all that glitters is gold. Much like the tortoise and the hare, it seems that speed is not the answer. If anything, all speed has done for China is to accelerate the digging of a $1 trillion debt. Yes, $1 trillion with a T. What am I talking about? Well, join me over the next few minutes as I explain China's train debt crisis and how it's become the boogeyman that haunts the Asian giant.
One of the world's most modern trains linking a political capital to a financial hub.
加快推进中老命运共同体建设。
That's caused considerable concern for many, particularly China as the main investor.
This is Bangkok's brand new Grand Central Station. No high-speed trains arriving today.
State-run China State Railway Group has had its debt ballooned dramatically.
Let's start from the beginning. China first embarked on a high-speed rail project in 2008, completing the first in 2009. By then, China's first long-distance high-speed rail service covered the 968 kilometers between Wuhan and Guangzhou at an average speed of around 300 to the global financial crisis. This high-speed railway infrastructure would help with easier integration and travel within the country, leading to a more unified China. This also served the CCP's ambition of having everything within the long hand of China's central government, unifying people under one house, so to speak. On the other hand, China re-engineered its railway infrastructure to drive the demand for concrete and steel and create millions of jobs and put all those who had lost their jobs back to work. By doing this, the government injected money into the economy, fixed unemployment, and saved several industries. Since then, the project has moved from being one necessitated by economic times to one of, well, pure flamboyance and a display of power. China's high-speed railway network has grown from that first 1,000 kilometers to a track length of over 38,000 kilometers, the highest in the world. High-speed railways now constitute over 26% of the country's total railway network, as the high-speed railway today connects almost every major city in China, with travel time just a couple of hours more than air travel, but with the comfort that only trains can provide. Now, I know this all seems rosy, and you might be wondering, well, where's the problem? And let me show you. This is the interesting, yet kind of dark part. Initially, there were rich dividends that were gotten from the high-speed railway endeavors. This was because the first rail lines that were made were very profitable lines due to the cities they served. Two that stand out particularly are the Beijing-Shanghai and the Beijing-Guangzhou lines that racked up a lot of money. To emulate this success and keep up the global perception that came with the high-speed railways, several lines started being built the nation over, many of which did not serve nearly as many people. Because of the disparity in the volumes of passenger traffic, many of the high-speed trains are running at high idle capacity. A good example of this is how a good number of China's high-speed rail routes are operating at less than 40% capacity. That is below what is needed to break even, and so they are running at a loss. These losses have climbed over the years to a point where it's almost laughable now. Most new high-speed railway lines in China have witnessed a sharp decline in their transportation density, and hence it has ceased to become efficient or wise to keep them running, leading to a few routes being shut off. In a little while, I'll talk about some of the problems that plagued the high-speed rails to the point where what was once a cash cow in China has now become a source of problems and a seemingly infinite money pit. Before that, however, let me explain the dynamics of what this self-imposed operating profits shrinking its bottom line. These successive years of losses resulted in China's State Council, the highest organ of state power, curtailing investments in the high-speed railways to prevent the slide into a deepening debt trap. The new guidelines have stopped the construction of new high-speed railway corridors, primarily on underutilized routes that are operating at less than 80% of prescribed capacity. For China, which has seen the length of its high-speed railway network increase by 91% between 2015 and 2020, the new guidelines indicate that the country's pursuit of speed has come at a high price, $1 trillion price to be exact. In typical Chinese fashion, without mentioning a specific figure or even a range, the State Council asked all governments to ensure that their railway debts should be within a rational range by 2035. Along with these guidelines, the government body has suspended all construction in regions where the debt burden is high and surpasses its fiscal strength. Debt-ridden cities building underground or light railway systems, too, have been suspended. This includes stopping work on 2 high-speed railway projects worth over $20 billion in the Shandong and Shaanxi provinces. Shandong's 270-kilometer line has sought to connect its capital, Jinan, with its southern city of Shaoxiang. For the very present future, those projects have been shelved. But China's debt train has more long-lasting effects as well. The increased heat on the debt-riddled operators has also dented the bottom lines of the investment banks and the shareholders of China's Railway Development Fund. As bond yields nosedived and profits crashed, the Chinese railway company decided to liquidate RDF 9 years early to avoid paying dividends to the investors. Set up in 2014 to raise money for China's growing high-speed railway network, the RDF offered preferred shares with steady returns to investors. A fixed annual return of 5.5% was offered to the first 4 banks that invested in RDF, while investor banks that came later were promised 5.32% returns. Reeling under a record loss in the first quarter of 2020 as a result of a 54.8% year-on-year crash in passenger earnings, owing to the pandemic-induced restrictions on travel, the Chinese railway company has found it difficult to pay such high assured returns. To make matters more unpleasant for the investors, the interest rate on the 9 20-year bonds issued by RDF crashed from a high of 5.78% in 2014 to an all-time low of 3.97% in 2020. All this has been disastrous for Chinese investors, faith in the China state-owned companies, and overall faith in the high-speed railway as a whole. Let's briefly go through some of the key problems that got the situation to where it is. How did this feat of engineering end up becoming the next big bomb that's about to explode within China's Red House? 3 factors best explain it.
Chinese second quarter GDP growing at the slowest pace since 2020.
The problem is restrictions to control COVID-0.
The economy remains stuck in a stop-start pattern. With millions of people confined to their homes, consumer confidence is flat.
A stagnant economy, a shrinking workforce, and a growing elderly population.
That's why inflation's hovering at around 2.5%.
As much as this was a solution born from a global crisis, China's high-speed trains have severe issues plaguing them. These problems, as luxurious and efficient as the trains might be, the ticket prices are considered exorbitantly high for most Chinese citizens. This is the opposite of what should have happened, as rail should be as cheap or cheaper than road transport, as is the case in several countries. China is the world's second largest economy in gross domestic product terms, but most Chinese are still relatively poor, with an estimated per capita income of $4,300 below the world average, according to the International Monetary Fund. Many of those riding trains are migrant workers who return annually to their home villages. But for most of them, even the cheapest tickets are unaffordable. This has resulted in fewer people using the trains compared to the projections. And for those who use high-speed railways, in some cases, they would have been better served with traditional rails that China is quickly dumping in favor of the faster, more flamboyant option that has, to this point, served as a sign of China's dominance. Keith B. Richburg wrote in the Washington Post, China's expanding network of ultra-modern high-speed trains has come under growing scrutiny because of concerns that builders ignored safety standards in their quest to build faster trains in record time. The trains, a symbol of the country's rapid development, have had several problems, including the 300-meter-long rail section collapse near the Yangtze River. This has only served to heighten the public fear surrounding high-speed trains. We cannot talk of the high-speed train network in China without mentioning corruption. What began with the firing and detention of the country's top railway official has spiraled into a corruption investigation that has raised questions about the project's future. The huge spending connected with the rail expansion has also been blamed on corruption. Investigations revealed that more than 5 billion yuan of financial irregularities existed in the Beijing-Shanghai link alone. And this is not just recent news, oh no. Railways Minister Liu Zhixun was dismissed in the spring of 2011 amid an investigation into unspecified corruption allegations. No details have been released about the allegations against him, but news reports say they include kickbacks, bribes, illegal contracts, and sexual liaisons. After Liu's sacking, allegations quickly emerged that he had taken a 2.5% cut on high-speed projects. In February of 2011, there were reports that Railway Minister Liu Zhixun accepted $122 million in kickbacks. Zheng Shuguang, the Deputy General Engineer of the Ministry of Railway and Director of its Transportation Department, was suspended on corruption charges. China's state auditor revealed that corruption derived from the Beijing-Shanghai line amounted to $17 million. Many believe that this figure wildly understates the problem.
China's economy has contracted sharply in second quarter.
China's current economic crisis is very different from the past.
In the third quarter, China's economy grew 4.9%.
Many companies from the European Union gradually withdraw from China.
The future of China's economy has once again attracted global attention due to a storm of protests by the owners of unfinished buildings in Jiangxi province.
So the question now becomes, is this going to be another meaner, worse-looking version of Evergrande, the crisis that threatened to topple the real estate market in China just last year? Well, it's a toss-up. The Chinese railway company still has some options that it can exercise, despite them being brutal. Also, the way the central government has begun to get involved by cutting down on new projects is very indicative of the role they may continue to play in the matter. Despite all of this, the $1 trillion hole burning in China's pocket is not just going to disappear. Somewhere, somehow, that cost will need to be compensated for. The near $1 trillion figure also heavily assumes that the interest will not rise colossally in that time, because if they do, that number will keep escalating. No matter how we try to dress up this pig, there is some bruising and hurting